Chicago Bulls fans, hold onto your seats because we've got some huge news that's shaking up the entire NBA. Jake Laravia, a promising young forward, just dropped a bombshell. He says he will never play for the Bulls. But why? What could have caused this shocking declaration? Is there more to this story than we're seeing? Stick around because today, we're diving deep into the drama, the reasons behind his statement, and what it means for the Bulls' future. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. What's up, Bulls Nation? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications, and give us a like because today's video is a big one. We've got some huge news coming out of Chicago, and it's all about Jake Laravia. Yes, the young forward who has been part of the conversation for a while now, but things have taken a very surprising turn, and it's shaking up the Chicago Bulls fan base like never before. We're talking about a statement he made recently that has left everyone wondering, will Jake Laravia ever play for the Chicago Bulls? Let's break this down because trust me, what he said is nothing short of shocking, and it could change the future for the Bulls. Now, for those of you who might not be entirely familiar with Jake Laravia, let's take a moment to refresh our memories. Laravia was drafted by the Memphis Grizzlies in the first round of the 2022 NBA draft after a standout college career at Wake Forest. His game is versatile. He's a forward who can shoot, defend, and even handle the ball at times. This made him an intriguing prospect. But things got interesting when Laravia found himself traded to the Chicago Bulls. On paper, it seemed like a solid move. The Bulls needed young talent to complement their core players, and Laravia looked like someone who could potentially fit in nicely. However, the story didn't play out as most fans would have hoped. Laravia's stint with the Bulls has been less than stellar. Sure, he has flashes of brilliance here and there, but overall, he hasn't been able to secure a consistent spot in the rotation. Chicago has a lot of depth on their roster, especially on the wings, which has made it difficult for Laravia to find significant minutes. It's not necessarily that he lacks talent, it's more about the team's overcrowded lineup. The Bulls already have solid veteran pieces like DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine, along with emerging young players like Patrick Williams, which makes it tough for Laravia to carve out a meaningful role. So, it's no surprise that Jake Laravia has become frustrated with his situation. But recently, things took a dramatic turn. Laravia made a very bold statement, one that shocked the entire NBA community. He said that he has no plans to ever play for the Chicago Bulls again. Yes, you heard that right. Laravia, in private discussions with team officials, made it clear that he was ready to move on. To some, it might feel like a betrayal, but when you look deeper, it seems like Laravia has reached a point of no return with the Bulls. And here's the big question, why would he say something like this? What could have led to such a drastic statement? Well, let's break it down. The first major reason that has come up is Laravia's role, or lack thereof, with the Bulls. After being traded to Chicago, Laravia found himself buried deep in the rotation. At first, you think, okay, he's just getting adjusted, it's only a matter of time before he earns his minutes. But time went on, and those minutes never really came. Laravia didn't get the opportunity to show what he could do on the floor, and when he did get the chance, it was often in limited spurts. That's a tough pill to swallow for any young player, and especially someone like Laravia, who is talented and hungry to prove himself. The Bulls had a crowded roster, and as much as the front office might have believed in his potential, it simply wasn't coming together on the court. Imagine you're a young player, you've got all this promise, and yet, you're constantly sidelined while other players take the spotlight. For Laravia, it must have been incredibly frustrating. There's only so much you can tolerate when you're not being given the opportunities to play your game. And it doesn't help that the Bulls are in a bit of a transitional period. They're not exactly competing for a championship right now, and there's a lot of uncertainty about where the team is headed in the long term. If you're Laravia and you're looking for a fresh start, it makes sense that he would want to get out before things go any further south. But that's not all. There's also the issue of the team's overall philosophy and the way they've handled player development. Laravia's skills set, his ability to shoot, his defensive versatility, and his high basketball IQ would be an asset to a lot of teams, but for some reason, Chicago hasn't really tapped into that. Instead, he's been pushed to the margins, left to wait for a break that hasn't come. If you're Laravia, you start asking yourself, why am I here? What's my role in this organization? How am I supposed to grow if no one is helping me get there? And that's when you start hearing the rumblings that maybe, just maybe, this isn't the right place for him. His statement to team officials that he will never play for the Bulls again isn't just a throwaway comment, it's a culmination of frustration, disappointment, and a realization that he may need to look elsewhere for his future. Now, there's another layer to all of this, the trade rumors. As soon as Laravia's comments hit the news, the rumor mill started spinning. Could this be a sign that the Bulls are about to move on from him? Could this be the start of a trade that sends Laravia to another team? The potential for a trade is certainly there. Laravia is still young, and while his time in Chicago has been short, he's shown flashes of being a capable player. His shooting, his versatility, and his ability to stretch the floor are all qualities that would make him appealing to a number of teams across the league. Whether it's a rebuilding team looking to develop him further or a contender trying to add depth to their bench, Laravia could be a valuable asset. But here's the tricky part. If Laravia is so outspoken about his desire to leave, that could complicate any potential trade discussions. Teams might hesitate to trade for a player who is publicly saying he doesn't want to be there, because they'll have to wonder whether he'll even show up for them. It's one thing to deal with a disgruntled player behind closed doors, but when it's out in the open like this, it puts pressure on both sides. The Bulls may have to move quickly to find a trade partner, and in doing so, they'll have to figure out what they can get in return for someone who is essentially signaling that his time in Chicago is done. So, where does this leave the Bulls? Well, it's a tough spot. On one hand, Chicago has a lot of talent on the roster. They have star players like DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine who can carry the team, along with promising young guys like Patrick Williams who are still finding their way. But the Laravia situation is a reminder that the Bulls need to be careful about how they handle their younger players. If they're not careful, they could risk alienating more talent, and that could hurt them in the long run. Chicago needs to find a balance between building for the future and competing in the present, and that means giving their young players a legitimate chance to develop. If Laravia's frustration is a sign of something bigger, the Bulls need to take a hard look at their player development strategy and the way they're handling their younger talents. So, Bulls fans, what do you think about this situation? Are you shocked by Laravia's comments? Do you think the Bulls should move on from him, or do you believe they can still make it work? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. We'll be keeping you updated with all the latest news surrounding the Chicago Bulls, and you're not going to want to miss it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.